Well, great win. Obviously, 2 top 10 teams playing at Notre Dame Stadium. This is why our kids come to Notre Dame to play in these big games, and they responded in kind. They started fast. I thought their attention to detail was great. Great enthusiasm out there. And then we finished strong. And so you have to put together 4 quarters when you play Stanford. We have, a history with this football team, and that, the fourth quarter has not been strong for us. And we knew, especially last week and the way they came back, that we would have to play 4 quarters if we were going to win this football game. So really proud of the way our guys handled the mental game as much as the physical game, and certainly the execution part. You have to have all those 3 phases working for you today, and they did a great job. Stanford's a great opponent, but we were up to the task today, and we had guys making plays and controlled the second half in particular, and put them in tough situations. That's a very talented team. If they can control down and distance, they make it very difficult for you. We were able to control first down, put them in predictable situations, which allowed us to do a lot of things today that gave us the kind of outcome that we got today. So with that, we'll open up to questions. I'm sure there's a couple.
Coach, right here, Austin Huff, Goshen News.
Yes.
Would you say this is the most complete victory, complete game you guys have played so far this season? Yeah,
I think our kids, when you look at victories as a football coach, as a head coach, there's always things that we can look at. I think I like the fact that we finished the game. We started fast, but we finished, and that's where you, as a football coach, when you're looking at your team, you see a resolve, a mental toughness that you're really trying to build with your group, and we saw that today. So yes, affirmatively.
Having Dexter Williams tonight obviously must have been a pretty good feeling for you. 100 and some odd yards, touchdown. I mean, what was like having him back and out there playing for you guys?
Well, I'm really proud of his growth and his maturity. Those come first. If he wasn't growing as a young man, as a student athlete here at Notre Dame, he wouldn't have had the chance that he got tonight. It's a privilege to play here, and he recognizes that. And when he got his chance, he made the best of it, and we needed him. We got unexpected news, late Thursday that Jafar Armstrong was not going to be able to play, and so put him in even a brighter light in a sense. But he was up to the task. It was, he had been practicing with us and stayed on top of everything, and he did the right things.
Brian, on the back, a quick housekeeping. You mentioned Armstrong. Any idea of a timetable on him and information on Bars or Jones?
I think Armstrong's probably a couple of weeks. We had to go in there surgically and clean up the infection. So, that wound's got to heal, especially that it was a bursa sac infection. So that's going to be a couple of weeks. So I would say, if we're really truthful here, I would say that we probably don't get him back until after the bye week.
Alex
Bars, it's a knee injury. He was able to walk off. That was good news, but we won't know until we get the MRI. We'll get an MRI and then get a better understanding of his situation. Tony Jones has got an ankle sprain, so we'll see how he responds to treatment tomorrow, and then moving forward, that is as tolerated.
Back to the game. Did you ever in your wildest dreams think you'd successfully run 55 times against a Stanford David Shaw defense?
Look, we're football coaches, and that's what we do for a living. So we go home thinking we're going to win 65-0, right? And so.
So yes, in your wildest dreams.
So yeah, right. So it's hard for me to really, we knew we have no chance to win football games against great competition, especially top 10, unless you can find a running game. And we felt like this was a team that if you're going to have a chance to beat them, you have to run the football. They're really good in the back end. They do some really good things. They mix things up, and our chance to really control the football game started up front. I don't know that we ever put a number on it. We think success starts around controlling down and distance with the running game, and we were able to do that today.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Coach George Bashura, Shakedown of Thunder Sports.
Yeah.
2 weeks ago when we were here with you, you talked about this team's identity still coming into play. Last week you really identified and talked to the team with Ian Book, starting as quarterback. After today's result, what is this team's identity offensively and defensively?
Balance on offense, the ability to run it and throw it with great balance. It certainly is a group now that is playing with a lot more confidence. I don't think that you can walk away saying it's not a physical group. We block out on the perimeter with a physicality. But I think the balance that we run it, throw it, I don't know what the numbers were exactly, but we threw it for 278 and we ran it for 272. Pretty good balance there. And I think that physical component is part of it as well. Defensively, I don't know if they get enough credit for who they are as a defense. They have been really good of taking away what your strengths are. Wake Forest, was a very difficult team to play because of their tempo. We got them off the field. This team is really good if they can control down and distance. We put them behind the chains and made them predictable. The defense has to exert themselves in a fashion to do that in all three parts of the defense, on the D-line, linebacker, and defensive back. And so I think it's starting to come together. We got a long way to go. We're going to go to Blacksburg, Virginia, and play in a tough environment. Then we got to play Pittsburgh, who's tough to play. And then we got to play Navy, by the way, Northwestern, who just beat Duke. We got a long season ahead of us. So if we're going to walk out of here thinking that, we just are the best team, we're going to get beaten. It's going to diminish this victory. So I told our team, I said, I'm proud of what you accomplished tonight, but if we don't embrace how hard this is going to be, we're climbing Mount Everest with this schedule. So take one step at a time and get ready for a tough opponent in Virginia Tech.
Brian, Stanford's real strength this year anyway, it's normally defense, but offensively the things that they can do. You held them to 51 snaps, 229 yards. How high is the ceiling for this defense, and what would the next step be?
I think they're playing. Here's where we want them to go: to continue to play with a sense of urgency, but a little bit more patience. Patience in a sense of playing smart. We're getting there, and that comes with knowledge of the defensive structure and what we're asking you to do. And I know that sounds kind of. There's a lot of moving pieces there, but that's experience and savviness and those little things that sometimes you don't see. They're building that. So I think there's a lot of growth there on a day-to-day basis and on the practice field.
Bryce Love had the touchdown run, but otherwise you really contained him.
And that was an error up front. Our structure, we had a structural error there. It was the only one we had all night, and it's kind of disappointing.
But overall, what was the key to your success? How do you stop a Bryce Love?
We talked about it all week. We were going to play with a sense of urgency, one play at a time, and the play didn't end until at least two players had him on the ground. Because that's where he was so difficult, is that you thought he was down and then he goes. And our guys were committed to that end in terms of making sure he was on the ground.
And how do you think you played against, I mean, their big receivers have given a lot of people trouble and will continue. How do you think you played against them?
Really well. We kept them out of high leverage situations for us in terms of, look, you got to play him on the back shoulder. You got to play him like you're playing, a post up, and we got a little bit too much friction on him. You can't body him up. You have to stay away from bodying him. And we got a little bit too much friction on him, and we got boxed out a little bit. Julian tried to play the back shoulder, got maybe a little bit too much friction, and they were able to get, the ball to the outside. But I thought by and large, everywhere else on the field, our guys were on it, did a nice job.
So you want them to create separation from the receiver so they can't body you?
Correct, a little bit. You can't be too much, but you have to create a little bit of separation so you can use your own ability. What they do a great job is they box you out, and you can't use your own ability to get to the football.
Brian, over here, evaluate Ian Book tonight, particularly his play in that 2-minute drill at the end of the first half.
What I liked the most about Book tonight was if it didn't look right to him, he didn't enter into that picture. He got out of it, and he got out of it with his feet. And so what we did all week is really tell him if he didn't like what he saw, just solve it with your feet today. As you get more of these snaps, there are 3-down defense. There's multiple droppers. They can roll coverages. They play a lot of robber coverage with a free hat, and it can be troublesome if you're not exactly sure where that free dropper is. And when he didn't like it, he took off. When he was sure what he saw and he was decisive, he put the ball where it needed to be. And I was proud of him because of that.
And then the explosiveness of your defensive line, particularly Jerry Tillery tonight.
Yeah. Well, you can't block him one-on-one. I mean, he showed that tonight. He was outstanding. He got the game ball tonight. He had 4 sacks. So anytime you have that kind of performance, that just says about his development. Look, he came back for his final season because he wanted to continue to develop as a football player and as a young man, as well as take classes. He has his degree from Notre Dame already, so he wanted to develop, though, a pass rush that would really take off, and I think he's done a great job there.
Brian, over here. George Schroeder, USA Today. What's Book brought to your offense now, 2 games in to evaluate? And then secondly, are you ready to name him the starter at this point?
I haven't named him.
He's got an oar on the depth chart, and he's below Brandon.
We'll have to have a conversation with our media people, because they like the game that we play. You're not here all the time, but they love coming in on Thursday and quizzing me about it, and we go back and forth on it. So I think they know who the starter is. Could you answer the question again?
So he is a starter. What's he brought to your offense? How's it changed?
I mentioned earlier about a sense of urgency. He has that urgency in what he does. There's an energy that he brings. But in a practicality sense, he delivers the ball to a number of different receivers, which obviously maybe a bad analogy, but a pitcher that is a ground ball pitcher keeps everybody in the infield, alive, right? I mean, all those guys are crisp and running routes and looking for the football, and so he brings that kind of energy to the entire offense.
Thanks, everybody.
Great.